Good morning. On June 23rd, 2000, I became a member of the Church of Christ. Now, those three words have their own very special and significant meanings, Church of and Christ, but put together they have a very specific, unique meaning. Church of Christ is often considered by many in the religious world just one of many variations of the Christian movement. As if to say, whether you're a Church of Christ, or Baptist, or Methodist, or Pentecostal, or Catholic, or a part of a community church, or whatever, that you are all just part of the same sphere of Christianity, just occupying a different part of that sphere, or emphasizing a different aspect of that sphere. And while I agree that Baptist and Methodist and Pentecostal and Catholic and community church members all share many same religious ideas in common. They disagree on many religious ideas too, but they do share many concepts in common. And I would agree that they all emphasize a different aspect of the Christian concept as laid out in the New Testament, and then de-emphasize other aspects that the other ones may emphasize. But I would not agree that you should put the Church of Christ in that same category. That being said, I believe that the Church of Christ is misunderstood as to what it is and also what it is not. So let's take a couple of minutes and just consider that idea. What is the Church of Christ? Let's consider the truth about the Church of Christ. Because if you were to ask me, what kind of church is the Church of Christ? As if you were curious to know more about us, or if you were thinking about maybe worshiping with this Church of Christ gathering house here at North Heights or some other one somewhere else, and you were inquiring about more information, and so you asked a very basic, very introductory question. You just said, what is so special about the Church of Christ? What makes the Church of Christ different? What makes it so appealing? What do I need to know to understand the gist of the Church of Christ? My answer to that would be fivefold. I would say, first of all, the Church of Christ is a Catholic church. It is not the Catholic Church, mind you, but it is a Catholic church. The word Catholic comes from the old Latin word Catholicos, which means universal, or total, or all-encompassing, something like that. But the most commonly used way that word is found is in reference to the capital C, Catholic, capital C, Church. The Catholic Church, however, began in the 600s AD, 600 years after the resurrection and ascension of Jesus Christ. It began basically when a man named Boniface, who at the time was the bishop of the church in Rome. What church? Not the Catholic Church. It hadn't been called such yet. But it was the called out ones who worship Jesus in Rome. And Boniface had been established as the principal guy in charge of the Christians in Rome. They called him the Bishop of Rome. Boniface got rather big in the head, and he decided that he wanted to be the bishop over all the churches. So he declared himself the universal bishop over all the churches. What's interesting is in 150 AD, this exact same thing happened when another bishop of Rome tried to call himself the universal bishop, and everyone kind of ignored him. But now, a few hundred years later, here comes this guy Boniface, and he says, I'll just be the universal bishop over all the churches. And since Rome was already the capital of the world, basically, and since Rome was already the capital of the culture of the world, the modern world of that area, that hemisphere, if you will, and since Christians were already looking to Rome for a lot of their spiritual guidance and a lot of the templates to follow anyway, it very naturally made sense for them to all kind of fall in line. And so when Boniface declared himself the universal bishop, all the other churches started to recognize that authority and grant him that title. In fact, they started calling him Pope, the Pope Boniface the First, the universal or Catholicos bishop over the church. So you have the Catholic Pope over the universal church, the Catholic Church. From Rome, the Roman Catholic Church. That is the rundown, very quick and dirty rundown of the origins of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, if you ask them, they would say their origins date back to Peter, but there's no record of any Roman Catholic Church with Peter as the leader of the entire Christian movement in the way that they describe him as a pope in any of the New Testament. Secular history records a very different story, that after the New Testament era came Peter and came the men who followed in the lineage, so-called, of Peter, and calling themselves popes and calling themselves bishops and universal leaders over the Christian faith, the Roman-oriented Christian universal faith, Roman Catholic Church. So that's the origins of the Roman Catholic Church. But as I say, the Church of Christ is not the Catholic Church, but the Church of Christ is a Catholic Church, because the Church of Christ is likewise universal. The difference between the Catholic Church and the Church of Christ is that the Catholic Church is self-appointed universal in its nature. They have called themselves the universal church. The Church of Christ is Christ-designated universal. Christ has made his church the one universal church. I'm not talking about congregations. I'm not talking about church buildings. I'm talking about the saved body of Jesus Christ, his church. Universal in origin, in nature, in welcoming in of people. Listen to what Paul says in Ephesians 1, 22 and 23. And God has put all things under Jesus' feet and gave him to be the head over all things to the church, which is his body, the fullness of him that fills all in all. The church is the body of Jesus Christ. The body of Jesus is the saved collection of people under Jesus' authority. He is the universal head over his universal church. It's the church of Christ. It is a Catholic church, just not the Catholic Church. The Church of Christ, for another one, if you ask me to describe it, I would say this: the Church of Christ is a Baptist church. But of course, we are not the Baptist church. The word Baptist is of French origin. And it means, to translate it literally, it means one who is associated with the act of baptism. The word baptism means immersing, or immersion, or immersing. To baptize, to be baptized, to go about baptizing, to immerse, to be immersed, to go about immersing people. There is probably the most famous man associated with the name Baptist, and that is John the Baptist. John, who was the disciple of God, the forerunner of the Messiah, the prophet of the Lord, who went around baptizing people, associating that action with his ministry and the prelude to the coming Messiah. John the Baptist. But his name is not John the Baptist. His name is John. His name is not John the Baptist like it's Kermit the Frog. First name Kermit, middle name the, last name Frog. His name is just John. The describes what he does, describes who he is and what he does. He is the Baptiste. Jean de Baptiste, the French would call him. And that's exactly what they did call him. And that title stuck when the Bible was translated and converted into Old English. Jean de Baptiste became John the Baptist. But literally, what we would translate it modernly is simply John the Immerser. John the, if you want to make that word a word, baptizer. But when you make it Baptiste, it sounds like a last name, it sounds like therefore a title, and it sounds like a title that other people wear, and thus you have today men who wear that title as a official religious designation when there's nothing in the New Testament to do just that. The New Testament church is a Baptist church, but it is not the Baptist church. The Baptist church began in 1602 in Amsterdam with a religious preacher named John Smith, who wanted to break away from the Anglican church and led a group of like-minded people to do just that, to break away from the Anglican Church of England, the Anglican church. And so you have the Catholic Church based in Rome and the Anglican Church based in England, and this offshoot of an offshoot sprang from that, the Baptists movement. And there are many different versions of the Baptist faith. There are many different offshoots. You have Anabaptist, and you had Primary Baptist, you had First Baptist, there's a Second Baptist, there's a Missionary Baptist, there's a Southern Baptist. There are variations of the Baptist movement, but the original concept of a religious offshoot calling themselves Baptist began in 1602. That would be roughly 1600 years, more or less, from the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's the history of the Baptist movement, but it's not the history of the Church of Christ. Nevertheless, the Church of Christ is a Baptist church because we preach and teach and emphasize immersion and baptizing and being people who baptize other people. The New Testament is not filled with Baptists, but it is plural Baptists, but it is filled with baptizing people and with people being baptized. Because every time someone is taught the gospel in the book of Acts, what follows is someone being baptized into Jesus Christ, or at the very least being commanded to be baptized, whether they obey the command or not. Acts 2:38, Peter says to the gathering of Jews there listening, "Repent and be baptized, everyone in the name of Jesus Christ." And those who did, 3,000 of them, were baptized on the command of Peter, making him, in a way, Peter the Baptist, Peter the Baptizer. In Acts chapter 8, when Philip goes to Samaria and he preaches Christ to the Samaritans, a great number of them, including Simon, the former con man, all become Christians by believing the gospel of Christ and being baptized, thus making Philip the Baptist, Philip the Baptizer. And you can go all through the Bible. Paul, the great number of people Paul converted with his sermons and with his writings. Paul the Baptist. I have taught people the gospel, and I have put people under the water and helped them to obey the command of Jesus when he said, "Believe and be baptized and you will be saved," Mark 16:16. And those that I helped obey that command by simply putting them under the water and lifting them out again, that makes me Matthew the Baptist. Now, I left the Baptist faith, in June 23rd, 2000. But I became a New Testament Christian on that same date. And I started teaching people the gospel, and I started baptizing people into Jesus Christ according to his command, baptism for the remission of sins, Acts 2:38. And in so doing, I became Matthew the Baptist. Capital B, no. Lowercase b, sure. Matthew the Immerser. Matthew the person who dips you in the water, just like John was originally, and just like everyone else who's ever taught someone the gospel and helped them to obey it. So the New Testament Church of Jesus Christ, the Church of Christ, if you want to simplify it that way, is a Catholic church because it's universal in nature. It is a Baptist church because it teaches and preaches and emphasizes baptism. It is also a Pentecostal church because that's its origins. But it is not the Pentecostal church, the religious group of people who call themselves the Pentecostals. The Pentecostal movement began in 1901 in Topeka, Kansas, when this faith healer, so-called, named Charles Parham, was holding a revival in Topeka, Kansas, and there was this lady there named Agnes Osman, who began to convulse and writhe on the floor and began to shout babblings, not even words, calling it speaking in tongues. And Parham declared this a miracle. He said it was a miracle akin to the day of Pentecost, and so those who began following that movement called themselves the Pentecostals. What movement, or what religious reference was he making there? It's Acts chapter 2. In Acts chapter 2, in the year 33 AD, mind you, in Acts chapter 2, Peter and the apostles gathered together, and this verse was just mentioned, he began to preach the gospel and convert the people in Acts 2:38, telling them what to do, and 3,000 obeyed, being baptized into Jesus Christ for the remission of their sins. All that happened on the day of Pentecost, the Jewish holiday that celebrated the giving of the law. Well, this was the celebrating of the giving of a new law in Jesus Christ, for those who become a part of Jesus' spiritual kingdom, being baptized into it. That is 1,900 years before the so-called Pentecost church began. Nevertheless, the Church of Christ is, while not the Pentecostal church, a Pentecostal church. Because if you want to know our origins, they don't go back to 1901. They go all the way back to 33. They go back to the beginning of the Christian movement. And the beginning of the Christian movement, Pentecost was the holiday in which those people first became New Testament Christians. So it began on the day of Pentecost, and those who follow what they did and they follow what was done on that first Pentecost can rightly call themselves a Pentecostal people, because we are people whose origins are Pentecost. But we are not the Pentecostal church. Just like we are not the Methodist Church, but the Church of Christ is a Methodist church. We are a Methodist church because we believe in a method to what we do. We don't just fly by the seat of our pants and choose randomly, willy-nilly, whatever we're going to do today. We don't just make up our own rules. We don't just follow our own doctrines. We don't write our own laws. We don't have our own covenants and creeds and and law books that we send out to all the other churches of Christ to say, you must follow this if you want to call yourself a church of Christ. No, we have that already written. It's called the Holy Bible. This is our method. This is our pattern. This is our rightly divided, properly deciphered, generally understood New Testament and Old Testament, spiritual, scriptural, holy inspired book to explain to us what God expects of us. It is more than just a book of laws. It's more than just a book of instructions or commandments. It is a love letter. It is a book of great poetry and history and prophetic understanding. But overall, this is the guidebook for how to live, how to be faithful, how to love and serve as Jesus expects you to do so. Therefore, it is rightly called the method you should follow, the pattern you should live by. We are a Methodist church because we are people who believe in a method, but we are not the Methodist Church. The Methodist Church began in 1736 under the oversight of a man named John Wesley. And the Wesleys started this so-called Holy Club at Oxford University, where they devised rules and regulations for what they thought made and constituted a holy and proper godly life. Incidentally, God already did that. They should have just read the book. But they wrote their own book. And they eventually gathered followers who started following their pattern and following their method, and they started calling themselves the Methodists. Because they thought to themselves, if we just follow this rigid set of rules, hey, we can be holy in the sight of God. Incidentally, that's what doomed the Jewish people, but let's not even go there. There's a lot of things wrong with what John Wesley was doing. The point is, though, he developed a method to follow for religious understanding. And his followers began calling themselves the Methodists. But while we're not that, we are still a people who believe in a method. All Scripture is given by the inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, reproof, correction, instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete and completely furnished to do every good work. 2 Timothy 3, 16 and 17. We're not Methodists, but we are a Methodist church. Finally, the Church of Christ. Yes, we are a universal church. Yes, we are an immersing church. Yes, we are a Pentecost-founded church. Yes, we are a method-following church. We are also a community church. Now, we are not one of the community churches that you find all around Batesville, here in North Heights, or all around the country. There are so-called community churches out there. They all have funny names. They all have names like the Cowboy Yeehaw Church, or the Happy Fun Time Jesus Land Church, or the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Church. There's always some gimmick name to it. It's the Lighthouse Church. It's the Right Way Church. It's the Up the Hill and Second Star to the Right, Straight On Until Heaven Church. It's always got some gimmick hippie name from the 60s. But at its core, those so-called community churches are really just offshoots of either Baptist or Pentecostal faiths who decided to start a new church in a town without calling themselves Baptist or Pentecostal in order to appeal to the people who are sick and tired of the rigid organization and the rule books that are instituted and imposed by the Pentecostal and Baptist faiths. Essentially, there's a whole group of people out there, and you may be one of them, who is tired with institutionalized religion, with top-down government religions, who try to tell you how to have your relationship with God. And you think, I just want to have my own relationship with God. I just want it to be me and the Bible and God and other people who have the same kind of idea. And here comes this church. It doesn't have any official designation. It's just a church in this community, right? It's the Life Church. It's the New Life Church. All that kind of nonsense. Really what they're teaching you is Baptist doctrine, or they're teaching you Pentecostal doctrine, one or the other. They have the same idea. Let's start a Baptist church but not call ourselves Baptist so we can draw people who don't like the Baptist. Let's start a Pentecostal church but not call ourselves Pentecostal so we can draw in the people who don't like the Pentecostal people. It's just saying that's all you're getting from them. So the Church of Christ is not one of those community churches, but we are a community church. We are a community church because we are a church that, number one, loves its community. We love the town of Batesville. We're always active in this community, trying to help this community, trying to reach out to grow and improve and strengthen this community. Spiritually, yes, but also even, in a worldly way, trying to help the society and the morality of the culture around us. Be a positive light and influence in the whole community. And then, yes, if we can teach you about Jesus in particular and help you become a Christian, that's our primary goal, but we want to plant that seed and lay that foundation, of course. We love our community. We are a community church because our members are of this community. We're not some isolated cult that no one knows who we are and we shut our blinds and you're not allowed in unless you know the secret handshake or the secret password. It's not like that. The people who belong to this congregation, and belong is really a poor choice of words. It's just the people who choose to worship here on a regular basis and to help this congregation and its influence particularly. But those people who are associated with North Heights, they're your neighbors. They're your doctors. They're your dentists. They're your mailmen. They're your school teachers. They're your restaurant waitresses and waiters. We are the people who just live in this community, and we obey the speed limit, basically the same as you do. Basically, we go to the movies the same as you do. We go out to eat the same as you do. You see us around town, and we're polite. We try to be, and we're kind. We try to be, and we let you cut in front of us in traffic every now and then. But we're people in this community, and then on the Lord's Day, we gather here at this place. And we worship as best we can according to this pattern. The pattern of the people whose pattern and the following of that pattern started on the day of Pentecost, when that universal kingdom was established. And everyone who's ever followed that pattern and was baptized into that teaching and baptized into that salvation also follows that pattern and becomes part of that universal kingdom and can trace their origins back to Pentecost as well. And in so doing, live in this community as a light of Jesus Christ, as a beacon to attract other people who are looking for something, looking for help, looking for support, looking for encouragement, looking for answers. You find that in the Lord's church. You find that in the kingdom of Jesus Christ, the body of believers who are owned by Him. We call ourselves here the North Heights, because that's where we're up on the hill here in Batesville, North Heights, Church of Christ. Church of Christ, because we are the called out ones church, belonging to, of, Jesus Christ. Church of Christ. We are a Catholic church, not the Catholic Church. You want to go to the Catholic Church, you get all that you want of the Catholic Church, but you don't get any of the Baptist Church, you don't get any of the Pentecostal Church, you don't get any of the Methodist Church, you don't get anything that you get from the community churches, you just get the Catholic Church. We are a Baptist church, but we're not the Baptist Church. You go to the Baptist Church and you'll get everything the Baptist Church can offer you, but nothing that the Catholics can offer you, nothing that the Pentecostals can offer you, or the Methodists, or the community churches. We are a Pentecostal church, but we're not the Pentecostal church. You go to the Pentecostals and you can only get the Pentecostal doctrine. You can only get the Pentecostal way of thinking. You can't get Catholic or Baptist or community churches or Methodist. We're a Methodist church. We're not the Methodist church. We have the total package of everything you're looking for spiritually, because we are the whole pie. And I say we, and I mean it's Jesus' body, of which we are blessed to be a part. He started a kingdom, began a kingdom of saved people on the day of Pentecost that is universal in nature, that is methodical in its following of His commandments and living His life, and that is community-oriented in reaching out to those in the world. That's the North Heights Church of Christ. That's the Church of Christ, really, in general. You want to know who we are? That's who we are. Thank you so much for listening. God bless.